Thank you so much for being here and for joining us for our 2022 Community Voices Poet Speak program series. Today we are featuring poet Yeva Johnson. My name is Nia McAllister and I'm the Public Programs Manager at the Museum of the African Diaspora in San Francisco. As we begin, I want to acknowledge the spaces that we're occupying. Though we're gathered virtually, we recognize that non-native people to this land are descendant from settler occupiers or those descendant from those forcibly brought to this continent. Mud occupies the unceded land of the Ramaytush Ohlone people. And we pay our respects to the Ohlone people and their elders, both past and present, who've stewarded this land throughout the generations. We encourage everyone to learn more about the native lands that you occupy by visiting nativeland.ca. Community Voices Poet Speak is an annual series that features local Bay Area poets who share original work based on the current exhibitions at MOAD. Today's program is the second in the 7-week series, and each Thursday we will be featuring a new poet who will talk about their work based on the exhibitions. This is their opportunity to share their work and reflect on the inspiration and process of writing ekphrastic poetry, or poetry based on or about art. The exhibitions currently on view at MOAD are Soul of Black Folks by Ghanaian painter Amako Boafo, and Thread for a Web Begun, Works Out of Silk by Malawi-born, Johannesburg-based artist Bellingham. As we are adapting this series virtually, we will be sharing images from the exhibitions on the screen as the poets share their poems and speak about their work. We'll have time at the end for a short Q&A, so please be thinking about thoughts or questions that you may have for Yeva today after seeing her work. Thank you also to poets and writers for helping support this program series. Today, we are thrilled to be presenting poet Yeva Johnson. Yeva Johnson is a Pushcart Prize-nominated poet, musician, and physician whose work appears in or is forthcoming in the Bellingham Review, Essential Truths, the Bay Area in Color Anthology, Sinister Wisdom, Yemassee, and elsewhere. Yeva explores interlocking caste systems and possibilities for human coexistence in our biosphere. Yeva is a past Show Us Your Spines artist in residence, winner of the 2020 Mostly Water Art and Poetry Splash Contest, and poet in Cutie Pak Fo Show, a small and sustaining San Francisco Bay Area arts collective. Welcome, Yeva.
Thank you so much, Nia, and thank you everyone who's come. I am so grateful to be here today. I want to thank my family, friends, and colleagues who are here today, and all of my poetry and writing communities. And I really especially want to thank you, Nia, for working with me and encouraging me. And I also want to thank Reina J. Leon, who is the poet who sent me to MOAD in the first place and got me into this MOAD family. It's wonderful. And she was the one who first invited me for this ekphrastic project way back before the pandemic happened. So I also want to thank all the artists participating in this Community Voices Poets Speak. I'm looking forward to all their presentations and meeting people next month when we meet as a group. So, and I want to thank these artists, all the artists exhibiting at MOAD right now. I got introduced to, and especially to Bellingham and Amako Boafo for their inspiring works. And I want to acknowledge I too am on Ramaytush Ohlone lands in San Francisco, where the MOAD, the museum, is located. And I also wanted to make an acknowledgement about COVID-19 because, and just acknowledge we're between the Delta and Omicron waves, and it's the reason we're meeting in this way. It affected my ability to do this project because I'm somebody who could be at risk, and these are just challenging times, and I wanted to acknowledge that. I want to give you a few minutes of my process and inspiration. I'll try to keep it brief. Then we're going to have a slideshow with some poems, and then hopefully we'll have some time for Q&A at the end. So I just in general want to let you know I've been writing poems since 2014. I'm currently in the process of doing my own self-study on poems and that type of thing. This is my first ekphrastic project. And I thought, oh, should I take an ekphrastic class? But I decided, no, I'll just do it my own way. And I'll just give you the broad overview. I first visited the museum and looked at the entire museum. And I picked out my favorite pieces and toured the entire building. So just a quick first floor, what hit me, and we'll show you some pictures later, but there's an exhibit by Sam Vernon called Impasse of Desires. There's an installation and exhibit, and recommending a book, which I will mention later, called The Queer Limit of Memory. And it was fascinating, and I read the book as part of this project. Then there's the bookstore, which if you haven't been to Moed, go to the bookstore. I spent a lot of time there, not even getting to the art. And I wanted to say that book is by Matt Richardson. And both Sam Vernon and Matt Richardson brought up two questions for me, or two ideas that inspired me for this project. One is there was a call for queering Black time and space. And there was the question that was asked, and I'm not sure which one of them is, where is the space for queerness to exist within a collective imagining of Blackness? And I was just thrilled by that. So once we go beyond the first floor, we go to the second floor. And I do want to mention there's an amazing exhibit by Sidney Kane in the Emerging Artists Room called Refutations, and it's on the myth of there being no Black people in San Francisco. And I'm here today to see it for yourself. There are Black people in San Francisco. That was a beautiful exhibit as well. And then we go to Amwako Boafu's Soul of Black Folks exhibit, then go upstairs, Billy Zangewa's Thread for a Web Begun, and also there's a video installation, and I don't know the title, but there are a bunch of different films. I sat through them 2 times. They were amazing and fascinating and a great counterpart to this. The other aspects of working for this, I did some online research, different kinds of things, and I'll just tell you a couple of quick things, and then we can get on to the poetry. Amwako Boafu, fun facts that I learned that I didn't know. Works in Vienna, Austria, and Accra, Ghana. He was inspired by W.B. Du Bois, who was buried in the Osu neighborhood of Accra, which is where Boafu grew up. I'm really inspired by W.B. Du Bois, so I just like that. I felt like a resonance with that. Amwako Boafu was discovered on Instagram by Kahinda Wiley, and if you don't know Kahinda Wiley, you should know Kahinda Wiley, because those are amazing works of art by Kahinda Wiley, and that's an amazing thing to have happen. In terms of finger painting, which I'm not going to talk a lot, when we do the poems, I'm going to do poems. So Amwako Boafu's the skin of the portraits, the people, is done with finger painting. And a quote I got from something I looked at he said, it's like sculpting my characters on the canvas, and it is amazing. So if you have a chance to see it, go see it. Billy Zangewa was born in Malawi, raised in Botswana. She works in Johannesburg, South Africa. Her mother is South African, her father is Malawian, and she's exploring everyday scenes of Malawi, and her work is amazing. That's up on the 3rd floor. I visited the museum multiple times, so many times that the museum guards actually started noticing. I realized I had to explain, I'm in this project. At some point, I realized Omicron is coming, and it was a potential risk for me, so I had to go and take pictures of my favorite pieces and do more online research, as I was not able to go indoors in crowded or not even crowded areas. So I know they limit visitors, but it was still too many for me. So I started doing things. I watched the virtual artist house, Moad, which you all can do, and I won't say too much about it because you can go look at it. It was really cool, of Amwako Boafu. You can learn a lot more about that artist. And then I decided, I was inspired by both of them. One, Amwako Boafu doing finger painting, his own particular style, and Billy Zangewa using, there was some talk, and if you go to the exhibit, about materials and supplies and art forms and things, because her art is done in silk. It's done in silk, sewn silk. It creates the art. It's incredibly beautiful. And that inspired me to do, and what I'm calling today, this whole project, I'm calling it a brief exploration of forms, an ekphrastic tour of the Museum of the African Diaspora. So, and by forms, I mean, usually I write poems, I just write whatever comes out. I tried to write in poetic forms for this particular project, which I discovered is a little bit hard. But there are a variety of forms today, including the duplex, sonnet, puzzle, And there's a form that I had been introduced to. I didn't know the name, so I called it 3-2-1 because it's 3 words in the first line, 2 in the second, and 1 in the third. And I learned and discovered through some searching around for it that it's called a reverse high naku, and it's attributed to Filipino poet Eileen R. Tabios back in 2003. So those are cool poems. I have a group of them to go with some paintings. So after choosing the forms and which final works I really wanted to do them on, I wrote all the poems in longhand journal here. Then I type them up and edit them. So I hope you enjoyed their work as much as I did. And if you are in the Bay Area and have a chance to visit the exhibit, please go visit it because it's really amazing to see in person. If you live elsewhere and you ever hear of Amwako Boafu or Billy Zangewa, their works, go and see it. It's really amazing. So please do that. And just to let you know what we're going to be doing, we're about to move on to our slideshow in a moment. Many of the slides have pictures of some of my favorite works in the exhibit. They're not all of them though, so you should go. I'm not going to give away the whole thing, but go and see it. There are more to enjoy. I'm going to start with a little talk, and then there'll be a little music before the poems. Then between the two artists, a little more music, and right at the end music, and then we'll do some Q&A at the end. So yes, I think please go ahead, Nia, and start our slideshow.
Great. And as I'm pulling this up, Yeva, just to let you know, your papers are wrestling your microphone a bit.
So okay. Very good.
So we can hear you while you read your poems.
Very good.
All right. Pictures are coming.
Yay. So this is what I mentioned before on the first floor, Sam Vernon, Impassive Desires. These are some beautiful, like delicate, they're these banners flowing in the ceiling. It's just fascinating. And if you could go to the next slide, Nia, this is the book I mentioned, The Queer Limit of Black Memory, Black Lesbian Literature and Irresolution, which can be purchased in the bookstore of Moad. But I read this book, and it's just a fascinating way of thinking about art and who's represented and how and what are the meanings of things. So that inspired some of the poems today. Okay, now we can go on. And I'll get started here with this. If we could go to the next slide. This poem is called At the Top of the Hour, after Amwako Boafu's Pink Astilbe. One more deep breath, then I'm ready for the next session to begin. My usual white dress, an open canvas for clients to paint stories of triumph or trouble. Today I'll keep that sapphire silk scarf around my neck tucked in. The sweet scent of pink astilbe on the table creates a healing bubble. Her usual white dress, an open canvas to paint my stories of worry, triumph, or trouble. I'm so thankful to have this therapist, to speak one queer woman to another. The sweet scent of pink astilbe on the table creates a healing bubble. Today, I'm ready to tackle my grief over the loss of my mother. I'm so thankful to have this client, to speak one queer woman to another. We've made a safe space where we too can be seen and connect. Today, she might be ready to tackle grief over the loss of her mother. If she could open up, not feel that she always had to guard or protect. I love her earrings, brass two-dimensional planets with moons floating in space. I know she's really listening when she tucks her left hand under her chin. To heal from pain and hurt, I've come at last to the right place. One more deep breath. I think I'm ready for this next session to begin. And if you could go to the next slide. This next poem is called Those Chartreuse Summer Days After Amwako Boafo's Libby and Deely. Sister love, romantic love, or sister friend, it's all good. Her smile warms the world and secrets are safe. Her secrets are safe behind the warm smile, and their whispered stories decorate vacation days. They're on holiday with time to whisper stories in those hot, bright Chartreuse summer days. The sun blazes on a Chartreuse summer day, bright cherry and bubblegum bandeau tops enough. Bubblegum and cherry halter tops are all they need to frolic in the heat. They joke and laugh in the heat, strong brown girls, strong brown women to be. Strong brown girls, strong brown women to be, share sister love, romantic or sister friend, it's all good. And if you could go to the next slide, this is one poem with short lines about the next five or so portraits. And it's called The Faces of Black Folks, after 5 Amwako Boafo portraits. Grandmother's plant thrives, draped around shoulders. Delicate hands match his peaceful gaze. Head wrap and jewels, she's all that. Hands so graceful, pluck my heartstrings. Blue-black lashes held my gaze. Ruby red lips, delicate as fingertips. Ghanaian queen bemused, visitor requests tea. Golden headdresses shine, adorn exquisite faces. Black hat makes side-eye gaze snap. Auntie's earrings shimmer like golden diamonds. Dark blue highlights make faces glow. Artist's massage creates human facial magic. Now we will go on to Billy Zangewa, whose exhibit is called Thread for a Web Begun. And if you could go to the next slide, I have a poem. This poem is called Sleeping Angel, after Billy Zangewa's An Angel at My Bedside. Her cantaloupe room becomes a sanctuary at the end of a long day. Summer's rays stretch into early evening as she lies down for a refreshing nap, careful to arrange her crimson and white dress so it doesn't wrinkle. Her scalloped sleeves provide just enough coverlet to warm her while she sleeps. What does this beautiful woman with close-cropped hair and lips to match her gown dream of now? With her head against soft pillows, face so serene in repose, her slight smile shows she can surely hear the angels singing. And if you could go to the next slide. This is a fun one. It's called Like Stella, after Billy Zangewa's Evelyn's Island Escape. As if she were Stella's queer cousin, Evelyn's ready for this vacation break from everyday life. Kids grown, obligations on hold, she steps out in style, Plum roses scatter across the silk satin ruby red robe that drapes her dark lanky frame as she bats her lashes at the beautiful black woman she met on the beach, and the highest clouds reflect her toothsome smile. Groove or no groove, Evelyn's prepared for paradise. And if you could go to the next slide. And this particular image goes with this poem, and then I'll be playing some music for the remainder of the images, but this one is called Stepping Downtown, after Billy Zangewa's The Rebirth of Black Venus. King Kong, Godzilla, and me, mistaken for monsters, boxed in, chased. We three giant beings should be revered, not reviled, a triptych chased. When standing full length, my afro touches the sky, and I sport the banner, surrender wholeheartedly to your complexity wrapped around my big waist. The city is so hot today, I'm searching for that dessert place, for a popsicle or icy. All I want is just a delicious lick, taste. In every city where I step out, Bahia, Bogota, Houston, Detroit, Kingston, Lagos, Paris, Port-au-Prince, I have no time for a pedicure because my feet get stuck in toxic waste. Traffic doesn't even stop when this giant ebony lady of liberty, yes me, carries out my mission to stomp out injustice deliberately, not in haste. When you greet me in the city, make sure you remember to call me by my formal name, the rebirth of Black Venus. Then you've got it aced. Thank you. I think hopefully we have a little time for some Q&A.
Thank you so much, Yeva. That was absolutely beautiful getting to hear the pairing both your music and your poetry as always, but seeing it alongside the images. And there's literally so many affirmations in the chat. I know someone was saying how musical it sounded, just the words of your poems, especially the Black Venus poem. I think that was one of my favorites hearing. So yes, we do have a few minutes, so I would love this to be a Q&A. So if folks have any questions or responses they would like to share with Yeva, please either put those in the chat if you're comfortable, or if you would like to come off mute, please raise your hand and I will take a look and call on people. Do we have any questions for Yeva? Great, I just saw Rachel.
Yeva, it's so beautiful to hear your work as always, and that was amazing. I wonder, I know you talked a little bit about your process when you were doing these poems, but when you write the music alongside it, do you start with what you're going to play? Do you start with something musical first, or would you say that you start with the words? I love it.
That part is easy. That's easy. I always start with the words and I write the poems. And when I'm playing, I'm just improvising. So every time it's going to be different. maybe I'm thinking about like what key signature, it's what I'm feeling from the people who come and what I'm feeling when I see that art. It's just what is coming out at that moment. So yeah.
Wonderful. Looks like Elizabeth has a question as well. And I know we have
Hi,
a few.
Yeva. Wonderful to see you and hear you. Beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
My question was actually almost exactly the same. It was about process. I was less thinking about the music, but I thought that was a really good question. But just in general, your process of, I think you were starting to say, I don't know if you were standing in front of the paintings in terms of your writing. Just a little bit more about that for you.
Okay, I will tell you in general, my usual poetry process, I meditate every day, I write a poem every day, and it's just whatever comes up. That's my typical process. But for this particular project, it was hard. I don't usually write for something like that and like having patterns, and I decided forms. So I went first just to look at the art, that was it. Then I look at the art again, pick my favorites. Then I went to each of the favorites, I spent time with them, and I described them. I wrote it out in longhand, what I liked about each painting. Then I thought about forms, what forms, I had to learn about forms and, you know, read about books about forms and pick some forms. And then I picked which art piece with which form. At first, I wanted to write a poem of every artwork that you saw the pictures, but that is like a lot of work and not possible and would go beyond the half hour that we have. So all of that went into it. And then once I picked the form, I write the poem with it, but just with looking at the images over and over. I took pictures with my phone because I wasn't able to go to the museum anymore. And then I just looked at those images over and over and over. So I don't know if that helps you. And then writing, and those are poets here. There are a lot of poets here. You're writing it, and then trying to get, you know, like the hustle, the last, making lists of rhyming words, or, you know, I don't usually write like that with rhyming and stuff. So, yeah. Does that help, Liz? Thanks for that
Yeah,
question.
thank
That's a good
you.
question.
We have many questions in the chat, so I'm going to kind of combine ones. We have a question from Katie asking if there was a specific piece that you most connected with and why. And then a question from Danny about if your relationship to the art changed after writing the poems.
Oh, that's so good. Those are wonderful questions. I would say the last poem, which was in a hustle form, was just fun for me because one, that's such a cool portrait, this Black Venus. I have some other Black Venus things in other poems I do, and it just was fun for me to be thinking about it. It was like the kind of very whimsical painting, and it was cool and fun. So I really enjoyed that one. The first poem I read, that was one of the hardest. That was a pantoum form, and I did it in a way that it was as a conversation. When I saw that portrait, I just pictured this was like a therapist. You know, there's just a lot of thought went into that. It changed my, you know, I'm doing some like personification poems too. I didn't want to just do descriptive. You know, ekphrastic poetry can be, it can like describe the painting so well that you see it in front of your eyes, but you see it in front of your eyes, or it can give you some meaning behind it, and any kind of inspirational aspect. So in that way, that I have invested meaning that I just made up because I thought, wow, wouldn't it be great if there were like, if this were, you know, a Black queer woman therapist. These people are real people in portraits, so I just made it up. It's nothing to do. It's just, that's just out of my imagination. So Danny, great question. Thank you.
We have time for maybe one more question. There's a question in the chat about whether or not you'll continue doing ekphrastic poetry now that you've kind of broken the seal on that. If you could talk about what's next in that way.
Wow. You know, I have to say that I have been amazingly inspired by this project. I'm very involved with MOAD in general and many different programs. And it's like, I love the MOAD. I love going to see art. I love to see art anywhere. And I thought, yeah, I realized maybe I will do some more. Maybe I'll finish up. Maybe I will write poems for all the ones that I was really inspired by. And maybe I'll do it with some other artists too, and just see where that leads. But yeah, it's cool. It's fun. Try it if you're out there writing poems or stories or whatever. Try it.
I know we would love to see and hear more of those poems if you decide to write more ekphrastic poetry. And I guess lastly, everyone's wondering where they can read these poems, if there's a place that they can read more of your writing.
these poems, you cannot read them because they're just on the pieces of paper that I was rustling away. Someday, I don't know if I ever really work on them, maybe they could get published somewhere. Oh wow, there are some anthologies like that anthology of the Bay Area, Essential Truths. That is a place you can read some of my poems. Just came out yesterday. I got Sinister Wisdom, issue 123. I have some poems in there, which is really cool. So different places. I'm working on a manuscript, so eventually someday I'll have a book, and then I can tell you, yeah, get the book. Maybe you can even sell it at Moad Bookstore. So how is that?
Absolutely. I am so excited for that. Thank you so much, Yeva, for this wonderful, wonderful experience of your poetry and music. And thank you all for being here and participating with us. This is just the second in 7 weeks of poetry. So next Thursday at the same time at 5 p.m., we'll be featuring Michael M.J. Jones. So please do come back for the next edition of this series. Tonight is also kind of a marathon of poetry. Just in like about 25 minutes, we'll be having our monthly open mic. So I invite you all to hop on a new Zoom link, which is shared in the chat, and join us there. And we'll be featuring the Poet Laureate of Los Angeles, Lynn Thompson, a full evening of poetry. And I know Yeva's on the lineup for tonight. So if you want to hear more of Yeva's poetry, please do hop on over there. And these two programs are just some of the very many programs that we're doing at Moad. So I encourage you to continue attending and supporting the museum in all the ways that you can. Becoming a member is a great way, or if you are able to financially donate, we appreciate that. And you can learn more about doing so and more of our events and programs through our website, which is moadsf.org. And with that, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening, and I hope to see many of you in just a few moments on our next program. Take care.
Thank you all so much for coming. It's amazing.